the instrument is essentially now ready to go. It looks like it's been sitting comfortably at, now 1/10 of a degree centigrade, I'm not going to, that's not within a problem area. Let's just make sure that everything is set. Nothing is, it's always good to double check that you haven't, you know, especially late in the day, that you haven't made any errors. And what I'm going to do before we set it up, ooh, yeah, these should be set, nope, or, I don't know why, this is a little disturbing, I don't know why this happened. Okay. Everything else should be fine. And this one is set. We're going to do a radial calibration. Oh, this is important. It's something, it's a very common, easy error to make. What I would like to do is first set up to do a single manual scan before we turn it off to run the method. And there's this one checkpoint you can put in to stop the XL after the last scan, right? And if you're doing a manual run where you just do one scan, what that would do is at the end, after doing one scan, it would turn itself off. It's like, no, we want to keep it running. So we're going to check that after we set the method up. That way we'll save a little wear and tear on the instrument, because at the end of the run, which happens whatever it is 4 or 5 hours from now this evening, we do want the instrument to turn itself off. It doesn't hurt anything if it were to stay running. It's just a waste of electricity and a waste of wear on the instrument. So we don't want to have this checked right now. We want to check it later. And everything looks fine. At this point, by the way, we're not controlling anything from here. Everything is being controlled from the computer. So under XL, we'll tell it to start, and that should now begin to come up. I'll do a single scan once it's at speed, yeah. And I'm a little good. Actually, the interference system is now on, and although we're not going to be collecting interference data, it's actually really nice to have it on. The reason is, this is how we can check for leaks. If it were to leak, then this would begin to move. Okay? So in fact, while we're coming up to speed, I'm going to look at each of the cells. That's cell 4. That's cell 5. Amazing. So far, so good. Boy, is this quiet. Yeah, I guess there's better sound insulation, or better drive. I mean, mine sounds more like an airplane. So how do I know it's not leaking? Is because this is the reference meniscus, this is the sample meniscus. And if it was leaking, these would start to move. Okay? Actually, you have a nice, looks like a nice interferometry set. Okay? And then I'll just 4 and 1. They're not moving so far. That's good. You can also see these are quartz windows, and now as we're getting to higher speed, you can see the fringes at the bottom are beginning to look lousy. That is an evidence. That's because they deform a little bit at higher speeds. It should be coming up fast. our acceleration is faster than that. I would have liked to have set it faster, but yeah, now you can see how poorly the fringes are being monitored. And the other thing you'll notice is the loading doesn't look exactly the same on each one of the cells, right? That's just, I mean, particularly with the 1 ml syringes and it's impossible to do it exactly the same. But in all cases, they look reasonable. Okay, so we're now up at speed, and sometimes, actually, I'm surprised on our instruments, because they will actually, the temperature will drop a couple tenths of a degree because the rotor actually expands and it takes heat into the rotor. So you'll actually see that. We don't see it here. Just make sure that this is still set up. So we're going to just do a single scan. And oh, I forgot. I normally name the method file. And because of the way we set this up, we told the instrument to do a radial calibration, right? And so what it's going to do first is it always has to do what's called a baseline calibration. And it has to do delay, which it's trying to decide when to flash to hit each individual cell. This will happen every time you do a new scan at a new rotor speed. Now it's doing the radial calibration, which is just, and there's a pair of slits in the counterbalance, and what it does is it just moves and tries to see when the light begins to get through, and one of those slits, I think, is 7.25, the other one is 5.85 centimeters. They're set at the factory. Actually, that's a good point. Be careful with the counterbalance. Treat it gently because those slits can fall out, and you have to get a recalibrated calibrator. And this actually will take typically a minute or two. And you know, it's not a real problem because we typically find that the first few scans that we record in a velocity run, we don't tend to analyze anyway. And I'm not sure why. There's a couple of reasons why. One of them is because of this rotor acceleration business, where diffusion is now starting the moment the boundary begins to move. But the sedimentation rate is changing as the rotor is accelerating from 0 to 445,000. So that's hard to accommodate. And so the first few scans never fit right. But later on in the run, that small time differential is less important, so the scans fit better. The other piece of it is that for reasons I'm not quite, things tend to get distorted very close to meniscus. And so once the boundary has had a chance to move away from the meniscus, it tends to work better. So for that reason, the fact that we're wasting a little bit of time right now with a radial cal is not important. The first 20 minutes of the run, typically not that useful anyway.